All right. Amy, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, you are good to go.
All right, perfect. So, hi, everybody. My name is Renee Lemira, and I am a senior product solution engineer here with Avalara. The goal of today is to really show you how the tax automation of Avalara exists for all of our Business Central customers today. As we go through this slide deck, what's important to understand here is that when we talk about tax and tax compliance, right, and reporting complexities, nothing is getting easier, nothing's slowing down. And it no longer becomes a tax team issue. It's actually an entire organizational problem, right? It becomes an entire problem for a company. Why? Because you're not at compliance. Okay. You're trying to get to compliance level. You're trying to achieve compliance, and then let alone you're trying to maintain that compliance, right? And what's important here is that the only realistic way a business can overcome any of these challenges is to the ability to employ a tax automation software behind the scenes. And how do we do that? We achieve that here because companies are trying to manage growth. Okay. They're trying to digitize, as you could see here, the way in which they're doing accounting today. There's cross-border implications. There's changes in regulations, whether it's rate changes, jurisdictional changes, boundary changes, new legislative mandates. And then we have the whole government action, right? Post the economic wafer nexus back in 2018. That's where companies today keep pausing and being like, we know we're not compliant. We have no idea how to become compliant. And we can't allocate all of our resources to trying to maintain compliance. So our tool is not to eliminate anybody's business whatsoever. It's more important to help leverage and become part of the ERP solutions so that everybody in today's society can focus on economic growth, knowing that tax compliance is happening behind the scenes. Okay. Now, one thing to note here, where do the ERPs typically fall short, and where do we help shine in those mishaps? Okay. First and foremost, call your attention to the two check marks. See where it says built-in tax engines don't handle exemption management. Okay. We come into play when dealing with customers. Are they exempt? Are they taxable? If they are exempt, do you have the resources to dedicate just to tracking, reaching out to customers, trying to obtain new exempt certificates? Do those exempt certificates expire? Are they even the right ones? What if you get sent an exempt certificate that's a multi-jurisdictional one? Not every state actually accepts that. So for you as a business to try to engage with this and keep up with this, that becomes a full-time job. Teams don't have that allocated as a resource. I used to be a tax accountant when I was in the corporate sector. Public, I did start. Corporate sector, there was four of us. How could one of the folks dedicate their time to this? It's impossible. Now, we also think about this, right? ERP solutions. You have to sell to your customers. You have to purchase from your vendors. Consumer use tax. People are coming to us. Consumer use tax now. Audits are starting there. Why? Because customers are not realizing they're getting a bill. Are they keen on, you hope your AP department focuses on, should their sales tax be on that? If there's not, we have to self-assess. What if the vendor is not charging the correct amount of sales tax? What if they're overcharging you? What if they're undercharging you? There's implications on both sides of the fence. Now, as you expand out globally, there's cross-border implications. There's rapid rule changes. All of this is creating risk. And then you layer on an org structure that has multiple entities, all with different Nexus footprints, all with different customers, all with different items. It becomes a full-time job just trying to take your current story today, making it compliant, and then maintaining compliance. Outsource that. And now here's why. So, how can we come into play here? Not only are we a tax automation solution, but we have and continue to build out the leverage of AI. Okay. And here's how we help facilitate that for our customers. Okay. Helping to identify missing taxes on invoices automatically. There's all these built-in audit checks. Okay. We're here to catch things so that it helps to reduce how many credit memos, how many credit rebills, okay? How many times do you have to make adjustments to previous tax returns? Amended returns are not easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of resources, okay? We have to be able to help our customers understand product taxability, okay? What good is a rate? What good is a jurisdiction if you can't apply what you're selling and buying correctly in that jurisdiction? Okay. Now, what we also are trying to do is we surface through actual built-in reports, okay, any use tax gaps or any missing exemptions. And we help to facilitate where you as a business need to focus. The last thing you have to try to focus on is analyzing every single transaction. That no one wants to do. Okay. As we continue to move along, it's important to look at this footprint. This I always tell my customers is the marketecture. You as a business, working at a business, your own business, you wouldn't exist if you didn't have what? Your customers who you're selling to, but you have to sell them something. Where does that come from? Well, you have to purchase it from somebody. So that's where it's important to look at the entire platform of what Avalara can bring to your organization. Yes, we facilitate, and my job here today is to really hone in on sales tax and consumer use tax. And that's where we have the purchasing side, okay, where we can help facilitate all of that when engaging with your vendors. We also have the sales tax side when you're engaging with your customers, helping to maintain compliance going forward with all of your customers. But then if you needed further, if you needed property tax assistance, or you're operating heavy machinery or things like that, and you need specific licenses in a specific state, let alone jurisdictions. And then everything down in blue is all of the additional feature and functionalities that Avalara can be a part of your embedded workflow and a part of your portfolio to help achieve compliance across every aspect of your business. Okay. Now, as we turn our attention specifically to Microsoft, okay, here's a bit of statistics because I want you to know this is a tried and true solution. Okay, we have over 20 plus years of partnership with Microsoft. And as you can see here in the blue, we have over 2,000 Microsoft Dynamics customers. Specifically, the goal here is Business Central. And I work actually heavily in Business Central, predominantly across all of our Microsoft platform customers. Now, how does Avalara become part of the Business Central platform? Because we're natively embedded in, okay? We integrate seamlessly. You know how seamless it is? It asks for what is your account ID, your Avalara account ID and license key, and that's it. Because it's a pre-built integration where we have all the embedded API calls, not only from the sales tax side, but also from the consumer use tax side. We help to drive efficiencies. Not everybody wants to deal with tax, let alone nobody wants to be a tax expert. That's where we come into play. And that's me specifically being a previous tax accountant. This helps you to understand when customers call you and need to understand the intricacies. You are not leaving your ERP system and going to the tax automation system. No, you are living and breathing inside of your ERP system. That is what you know best. And now you're able to drive efficiencies while gaining compliance natively in the platform. When you onboard with Avalara, you maintain compliant across all the states, all the jurisdictions, because now we have the capability to be involved at every single transactional level. Ultimately, what does that do? It helps to reduce audit risk. Now, one thing here, Microsoft multi-structure platform, Avalara multi-structure platform. That goes with you are not going to outgrow Avalara. It's going to scale with you as you add on additional, say, entities inside of the Microsoft platform. By entity is how Avalara comes into play here to help facilitate exactly the tax that is needed. Now, we're ready to jump in because I want to move off of slides. And that's where I'm going to drag over the screen and we're going to take a look exactly inside of the Business Central platform today. So when we look at this, right, you can see Avalara becomes part of your native ribbon up at the top of the screen. When we look at that here, okay, the screen that I have is one of the key pillars of data. There's 3 pillars of data that Avalara needs to know. What are they? Number 1, Avalara has to know exactly what your Nexus footprint is today, both from a sales, economic related perspective, as well as a physical presence. So where are you as a company registered today? That's going to be stood up in the Avalara portal first. Then from there, the 2 other key pillars of data that we need to have is, well, what is it that you're selling? And that brings us here to a taxable mapping exercise. This here is going to show you exactly by item, and Business Central has a lot of flexibility because you have the capability to add each and every itemized item, or you can categorize. You make that as a decision. But then when we look at the AvaTax taxability code here, right here on this screen, you're probably saying to yourself, where do I get these tax codes from? Do I have to memorize them? Where do I get them? What happens when rate changes occur? Do I have to keep updating it? And the answer is no. This is a one-time setup upon implementation of Avalara with Business Central. We provide a tax catalog where you as a business will go and understand, well, what are the tax codes that make sense for what it is that I'm selling? What matches that description? Knowing that by default, if this is left blank for whatever reason, Avalara is going to default actually to this tax code right here, which is the tangible personal property tax rate. So a lot of times we tell our customers, focus on the non-taxable items, okay? Such as warranties, such as freight, such as labor, maintenance, okay? Nothing that you can actually touch, but those are the areas that vary vastly across state lines. And that's very important here because behind each one of these tax codes houses all of the 50 states' state tax logic. So think about how you're doing Business Central today. There's probably a matrix. You are probably trying to figure out every jurisdiction. You probably have a tax code against every jurisdiction. Then you're trying to figure out here, against every jurisdiction, how do I account for what it is I'm selling? You may not even be, because that requires another layer of understanding taxability, whether you're stating it's taxable or not taxable. Okay? So your goal here is to put these codes in once, either across every single item or categorizing your items where it reads only the tax code at the tax header. It all depends on how frequently you add your products and services and what makes most sense to you. But no, this here, no matter how and where you transact, we are going to know in the United States what are the jurisdictions and how to account for that product and service at that jurisdictional level. Once we save that, now we have to do the third and last pillar of data from a setup perspective, and that's going to be on our customers. And when we look at our customers here, this is going to be a perfect example of a list of all your customers. Well, by customer now, when you drill in, it's important to call our attention to, up at the top here, the related tab. You as a business are going to put in your customer data information, okay? Then what we're also going to do is see where it says address is validated. That will turn that teal blue once you've validated the address with Avalara. The other thing that we want to call our attention to is tax liable. And here's why. Because from a tax liable perspective, we are saying whether a customer is exempt or a customer is taxable, we want them to call to Avalara. We want Avalara to truly understand, does that customer have an exempt certificate for the ship to state? Is it valid? If the answer is yes, and it's a recurring customer, not project-based, but a recurring customer, then what we can do here is facilitate the true automation of sending out an email, okay, by simply going ahead up at the top here and adding number 1, the customer as an exempt customer to the Avalara portal. That reduces duplication of data entry, takes everything from the customer card here and pushes it automatically in Avalara. Then what we're going to do here is also right from here, we're going to request an exempt certificate. That is a formalized email that is going to link them to what is called Avalara Cert Express, public-facing website, but it's going to allow your customer a formalized process for them to know, based on the state and the reason, what form they have to complete, how they have to complete the form, and simply submitting it gets it to the Avalara portal. From there, Avalara is going to go ahead and validate the certificates to ensure compliance against the jurisdiction. If there's project-based certificates, yes, there are ways in which we can help facilitate that. It's a little bit deeper of an exercise, but it is possible. The bottom line here is a customer service, whoever enters this data in, has the capability to do retrieve certificates, and this is tied to this customer where you can see right here with inside of Business Central, how many exempt certificates do I have for a customer within the Business Central platform. This starts that mindset to know, okay, if I'm transacting in the state of Washington, I'm expecting $0 of tax. But if I'm transacting anywhere else, I'm anticipating tax is going to be calculated. Okay? So if a customer calls you and says, customer, can you help me understand, did I send you my Florida exempt certificate? You can come here and say, no, unfortunately you haven't. Do you have one? We need that prior to invoicing so that we do not assess tax. The goal here is that you obtain a certificate at the time of onboarding so that as you transact sales orders, as you transact invoices, it's going to show tax when applicable, otherwise no tax because we have an exempt certificate. Okay? The goal here is to make sure that a customer maintains an exempt status and does not default to taxability by native default features from Avalara. And the other caveat here is to keep you as a business compliant with the state. We do not want you to get audited to say, customer ABC, you have $500,000 of California sales with no exempt certificate. We're actually going to reclassify that now and hit you with penalties, liability, and interest. Okay, so that's how this solution is going to come into play. Now, we've done our setup. We're ready to see live a sales invoice. This here is the true power of the automation. You put in your data here. Down below here, I put in a widget. I've indicated it's one widget for $100. See that AvaTax tab? Everything is going to call to the Avalara engine. And now when we look at this together, you are going to see total tax of $8.63. I have not posted this yet, but I'm questioning, is that right? I'm not sure because I have a Washington exempt certificate on file. I'm not sure where I've selected. I don't remember, say, if I didn't select it. But here is where you can ship it to different ship-tos per customer. But now I want to make sure that I selected the right address and Avalara is picking up the correct jurisdictions, rate, and taxability. You as a business will have the option to hit statistics. And what this is doing now is it's taking into account everything that we just said. Number one, it's looking at the ship from and the ship to. Because not only are we thinking about rates, we have to think about, is it an interstate activity or an intrastate activity? Is it origin-based? Is it destination-based? Is it hybrid-based? When we look at both of these, we correlate these to exact latitude and longitude coordinates. We drop a pin on a map behind the scenes. Now come down and click on the tax details. And how nice would it be inside of your system to understand and not have to do any heavy lifting? Avalara determines the jurisdictions. Avalara knows the rates, and when they change, it automatically is fed in. And then based on the tax code from the invoice, we know it is a fully taxable item. Therefore, taxability times rate, we break out the amount of tax that is due across every single jurisdiction. That flows into Avalara already on the back end, and now that goes into the reports and ultimately the returns for filing and remittance to the states. Now that's on the sales tax side. I want to close out with consumer use tax because that's on the other side of the fence when engaging with your vendors. And people come to me all the time and say, we need help with understanding how to account for the accruals because our vendors are not charging us the correct amount of tax or no tax at all. And how nice would it be inside of Business Central to be able to go ahead at the purchasing level now and put in an actual purchase, indicating all the components from the vendor bill and highlighting how much the quantity and the cost that's natively embedded that you bought it for to your vendor. Okay. Let alone you put that data in. Okay. And you might say, maybe they didn't charge me any tax. Maybe they charged me some tax. When you hit the statistics button, watch what happens. This here is already in the queue because I have demo data. But if you put in no tax, right, or you had tax already in there for that customer, this is what it's going to look at and give you that alert right then and there, letting you know right in real time, did that vendor undercharge you by $8.41? The vendor charged you this amount. Avalara is calculating this amount the exact same way we did the sales tax. And now the $8.41 has to get accrued for on your tax return. That happens automatically, the flow, okay? You have review statuses put into place. If you wanted this to auto accrue, say you know that this vendor has history, we know Avalara is doing it right. You can route things so that it helps to eliminate how many AP bills you are reviewing, say on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And all of this is going to flow into Avalara to help you in real time run reports, understand gaps, and then ultimately how much you have to obviously pay to each and every state. So we are here to help you from a true compliance aspect and need, okay? And with that, I would like to thank all of you for your time today. And if you had any additional questions or things like that, please feel free to submit questions here. And you could also additionally find us on Microsoft Marketplaces. So with that, I'll stop sharing and I'll pass it back over to you, Amy.